2024 was by far the hardest year for me if it wasn't for setting up my goals. Today, I'm going to go over how I'm changing my life in 2025 and all the goals I've set for the year and how I plan to achieve them. In my next video, I'm going to go over my entire 2025 Notion setup, and I'm also going to have a template ready for you, so I highly recommend that you stick around and keep an eye out for that video. Earlier, I mentioned that 2024 was by far the hardest year for me, which also meant I had to restructure my goals. I was laid off for over a year and a half, and I don't want to get too deep into that. I will actually talk a little bit more about it as we go deeper into what my 2025 goals are. I've been setting yearly goals for myself for a really long time, but this is going to be the first time I'm going to share with you how I set my goals. I'm going to try to provide solutions on how I plan to achieve my goals. Most of the solutions will likely be developed as we progress through the year, so I will try my best on some of the goals that I know for sure that I have a pretty decent solution on, and I will provide them as we go through my goals. Generally, I like to set a theme for all of my yearly goals. So for 2025, the theme is always be good to yourself. As I mentioned earlier, I was laid off for over a year and a half, and I actually didn't think that it was going to be that difficult for me to find a job. I work in the tech field, and as many of you know, a lot of people in the tech force were laid off. I actually didn't realize how difficult it was going to be for me to even find a job. So that meant I was actually competing with a ton of people that also had very transferable skills like I had. This really took me down a very negative path, and it not only hurt my mental health, but it also hurt my physical health, my emotional health, that I really couldn't operate as a normal human being. I always found myself comparing myself to others, always feeling like I just wasn't good enough, no matter how hard I was working towards interviews and just kind of getting to that next step. I was never ever getting to that final stage. But then at the end of the day, I realized I just wasn't being kind to myself, regardless of how much I actually achieved just by going through the interviewing process and being able to keep afloat. So in other words, always treat yourself with kindness. At the end of the day, any little progress that you've made is one step ahead. So now we got that part out of the way, let's go ahead and go into my 2025 goals. So I think I have anywhere between 20 to 21 goals set for the year, and while that is a pretty aggressive list of goals, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to meet most of them, but I already know there's a chance I might not meet the rest. But we'll just go ahead and see how many goals I actually reach as I continue checking in with you guys. So I categorize my goals between personal and professional goals, and then I've also separated them between quarterly goals and some yearly end goals as well. But I'm gonna set them in my next Notion video on when I think I can achieve these goals. I'm first gonna go over all of my personal goals, and then I'll lead into my professional goals after that. The first personal goal is going to be recreate my emergency funds account. Like I said, towards the tail end of 2023, I was laid off, and I am so thankful that I had an emergency fund, because that is exactly what I used to help me survive over the last year and a half. I started my emergency fund really early into my career. You just never know when life will get in the way. And I kid you not, having the emergency fund really helped me get me off my feet, especially when I was in such a dark time. I've heard a lot of stories where people just didn't prepare in advance, and I'm so thankful that I even had an emergency account. That way I'm still able to live the life that I'm living right now. And I highly recommend that this is something that you look into as soon as possible, and just start saving up anything that you have. Just skip that coffee in the mornings or something like that. Like, you never know, that extra $5-10 that you save every single day will actually come in handy when you have like an emergency like I did. This is going to be something that's going to take some time to rebuild, unfortunately. It means I just have to restructure my financial plans a little bit, but this is something that I highly recommend people to look into if they just don't have one already. I think a really good solution for this one is figuring out how to segregate your income. Like, you can ask your employer to separate your payment to go into separate accounts, but I highly recommend you to do that. Or if you don't have something like that, then if you get like a large sum of money into your account, immediately put some of that into your savings account and just never touch that. I kid you not, this is exactly what I did. It really helped me save my income, and you can also see exactly where all of them are going. I just really highly recommend that you just do not touch that specific account that's dedicated just for emergency funds. My next goal in this category is let go of my wants and needs. This one is a little unique. It's about practicing any type of strong desire or compulsion to have something that you don't need. I feel like I'm generally really good at making decisions before I actually act on something, especially if it comes to like a large purchase. Recently, I did notice that I am having a hard time deciding between what my wants and needs are, especially when it comes to trying to fill a void, which is kind of what happened during this year. So I constantly feel like I was trying to fill the void that was missing in my life. Right now, I have some major life goals I set that I'm not gonna actually discuss in this video, but when I allow myself to think about those goals and how I can obtain them, that will actually help me realize like I need to focus on reaching that goal rather than trying to fill a need that I might need right this second. My next goal is learn how to breathe before becoming reactive. This has been a lifelong goal for me that I've been working on for a really long time, and I've been pretty successful with it, but it continues to be a goal that I add to my goals list because it's extremely important to me, especially because I am a type A person. As a type A person, I literally have all the qualifications of a true type A. Like I literally feel like I fit the exact mold of a type A material. If you're not familiar with type A personalities, we are very confrontational. We like solutions and we like to fix things as soon as possible. And we're always trying to think like several steps ahead. And I always have to remember that that's not always going to be the case in any type of situation I'm in, meaning not everyone is able to be as quick or be able to quickly find solutions in an instant. And a lot of the times this really isn't like a bad thing. It's just who I am as a person. I just have to always remember like this might not always be super feasible for whichever scenario I'm in, and not everyone is going to be always wanting to find a solution. Sometimes there are things that don't have a solution, and I just have to remember that could potentially just be the case or just be the situation. I don't know if I have an actual solution for this one other than this is something that I work with my therapist about. We generally just talk about things, and I already know that when I feel like I need to be reactive, I just really need to take a huge step back and just kind of take a deep breath and think about it before I actually react. And so far, it's definitely working. I'm planning to talk a little bit more about what it's like being a type A. So we'll actually talk about that a little bit more later because I have a goal related to this. In this conversation, I just mentioned about my therapist. So I actually think I'm going to lead into my next goal, which is find a new therapist that works for me. So I've had the same therapist for about 2 years. To be very honest with you, I really like my therapist a lot. I had a very specific criteria of what type of therapist I was looking for. I live in a state that don't have a lot of Asian representation. So it was really important for me to find a therapist that was Asian. I'm not too sure if my therapist might be really working for me, and I say this because I still don't know if I found a lot of the solutions through my therapist, and I kind of feel like we're talking a lot about things that I don't feel like are really helping me. Like we talk a lot about my past, and I kind of don't see how they're supporting me now because I'm looking for things that are supposed to support me today. But again, this is probably leading into my previous goal, which is just being a little bit more patient and not as reactive. I feel like I might want to try exploring different therapists this time, maybe someone that's a little younger and maybe a little more closer to my age. I think this one's just going to be a little hard for me, and I'm just going to have to look more proactively. So my next personal goal is downsize my closet. I live in a state where I have all 4 seasons, which is great, but that also means I have a ton of clothes that I'm constantly going through and I constantly have to put away for every season. That means I end up having a huge clutter of clothes all the time. I really have to downsize my closet. It's really nice having all 4 seasons, but that also means you're gonna have a whole full bulk of things. And I feel like I'm constantly purging clothes all the freaking time. I don't even have a walk-in closet, which is probably the reason that's making it really hard for me to like store my clothes. But I need to downsize, and most importantly, I need to get rid of clothing that I just haven't worn in like over 10 years or something along those lines. So this is just a huge goal for me to just go through my closet every month and just get rid of things I just no longer wear. This leads into my other goal, which is declutter my apartment. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment by myself, but believe it or not, it can get cluttered really, really quickly. I'm starting to get to the point where I'm actually starting to put things under my sofa or my bed, and I absolutely hate doing that. And I feel like I need to really go through a lot of these things to see what they are and if they're even worth keeping. I don't know if it's a millennial thing, but like I keep boxes, and I think this is what's taking up the most space. Like those are the things I really have to let go. This year I'm starting to look for a larger apartment or starting to look to plant my roots somewhere. So I think this would be a really good time to start getting rid of things I don't need. Mostly starting off by just getting rid of all the stuff that I just don't need. Okay, so my next goal is read 50 books challenge for the year. I feel like this should be a really easy goal for me. I used to be an avid reader and then work got in the way, so my reading did decline after that. But I did get back into reading last year, and I started reading again in March, and I feel like within, I don't know, like 9 months of that, I was able to complete 55 books. Or did I say 55 or 53? I can't remember. But anyway, I read past what I had expected, but I feel like I kind of cheated on this one just a little bit just because I listened to a lot more audiobooks than actually reading physical books. But I did get a Kindle this year as a Christmas gift that I'm super, super excited about, and I've been wanting to start reading more books on paper or on the Kindle. So we'll just see how far I get with this one, but I really, really enjoy reading, and I think it's just such a good way for me to like decompress, and reading just helps me just kind of get lost into like another realm. I have a Goodreads account that I use to track a lot of my reading. I think there's another app out there that I should try exploring. I don't know, look into like book clubs or something like that. But regardless, still my goal is to read 50 books for the year, but hopefully I can surpass that. Okay, my next goal is be more intentional and authentic. This one is a very unique goal. So right off the bat, I am a woman that works in tech. A woman that works in tech typically has to code switch pretty often. I feel like I always have to come off extremely bossy or professional all the time because a lot of the people that I work at work are men. And while I was with my former employer, I had a lot of male managers or directors. And my actual personality is a little bit more bubbly. And this doesn't go hand in hand, especially in a male-dominated world. I feel like women like me have to be taken extremely seriously, especially when they just work with nothing but men all the time. And I constantly have to be always code switching when it comes to my personality, which I really don't like. And I'd really like to get to the point where I could be a little bit more intentional and authentic like I am being in this video right now, and being able to show my personality more at work, because it really, really sucks that I can't always be the way that I am and always have to be like making sure things are always correct and right, and just being extremely prepared, and also being really dominating at work, which is not really something I really enjoy being all the time. But anyway, this one is really important to me, so hopefully I can get to the point where I don't really have to code switch often. Okay, this leads into another goal that is pretty similar, which is be more intentional and maintain relationships. This one is a pretty big one for me. I don't remember if I actually mentioned that I'm not initially from the state that I currently live in. I'm actually from California, and all my friends are literally from the West Coast or living in the West Coast. That also leads all the way up to the Washington state. So this goal is about just being more intentional and actually maintain those relationships that I currently have. And it's definitely really hard when all my friends live so far away. It's like really hard to even get a phone call in. Sometimes life gets in the way and I'm not able to text them. Obviously, I'm not able to go see them all the time. I recently went to one of my girlfriend's weddings in July, and that was in California. And that was the first time I was able to see like 4 or 5 of my friends from school. And it was honestly one of the best moments I've had in a really long time when it came to seeing my friends. So because of things like that, it's just sometimes really hard to just like send that message. But my goal is to just be more intentional and reach out to my friends a little bit more frequently. And hopefully I could actually get some friends out to come this way. Some people are really important. You definitely want to keep them in your life, especially if they made such a big impact into your life. Okay, this is a very personal goal for me, which is continue practicing Hangul. Hangul is Korean language, in case you didn't know that. I'm mostly Korean, even though I have some Japanese in me, but I grew up speaking more Korean versus Japanese. And unfortunately, as I got older, that language just completely disappeared. And I definitely don't want this to happen. I actually started practicing Korean a lot last year when I went to Korea last time, because I realized how valuable it is to have this language under my belt, especially because most of my family members speak Korean at this point, and a lot of them don't really understand what I say. This year, I made a pretty big goal to practice Hangul, especially being able to read and write it. And believe it or not, it made a pretty big improvement in being able to navigate myself when I went to Korea this year. This is a pretty important personal goal for me. And yeah, really good to make sure that this one is making a lot of progress when I can. My next goal is travel to 2 foreign countries. I think this one is going to be extremely tough to meet this time. This year I went to 6 countries, which was quite a lot, and I don't think I'll be able to do it like that again anytime soon. Hopefully by the time I'll have something lined up, but I do know that usually it takes time to be able to accumulate anywhere between like 2 to 3 weeks of PTO time. I've already traveled to over like 55 countries, but I just really love learning new things regardless. And it's always been super important to me to travel. So hopefully I'll be able to continue this trend that I have going on for myself. Okay, my next personal goal is release 3 YouTube videos a month. This one is a very far reach out goal for me. I could even release like 2 videos a month. 1 video a month, or at least 2 videos. I think 3 is a huge stretch, but I'm gonna keep trying regardless. But yeah, I started my YouTube channel this year in February, and I didn't start posting my first video until April. But I have to say, if it wasn't for this hobby, I probably wouldn't have a routine and have something to actually look forward for myself. Like I said, 2024 was such a dark year for me, I kid you not. I picked up YouTubing because it's something that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. I just wasn't really sure what direction I want to take it. But I realized it's been one of the only hobbies I've been actually able to stick for quite some time, and I want to keep that going because it's been a lot of fun, and I'm actually really enjoying doing all the things that involves this hobby overall, and I've definitely felt like it was a huge learning curve for me. Once I start a job, I know that releasing videos will slow down. Obviously, my YouTube channel is extremely small. Like, I only have under 250 followers. So right now I'm gonna try to focus on sticking to some better series, and then also hoping I get a little bit more engagement out of people that way. Which actually leads into my next goal, which is create a series for a YouTube channel. Obviously, I've been testing the waters with different things, and it's pretty clear that I have a lot of different type of content on my channel. I feel like the only things that's been pretty consistent is my Notion productivity videos, but I definitely want to add another series, which actually, if you recall what I said about being a personality type A, I'm thinking about adding that as a series. So kind of keep an eye out for that. Okay, those were all my personal goals. So now let's lead into my professional goals. My first professional goal is build relationships at work. I think this one should be pretty easy for me. I absolutely love meeting new people and building relationships. And most importantly, like, nobody wants bad blood, especially if you are someone that works with a lot of cross-functional teams. Unfortunately, in my last role, my former director had a lot of bad blood with a lot of people in the organization. And I definitely felt like she had hurt a lot of relationships, even though in her mind, I think she doesn't do that. But my whole part of mentioning this is it's extremely discouraging when you are working in a very toxic environment and working with very toxic people. So my goal this time is to make sure I do not build those type of relationships or be under a team that may have some toxic background. It's really important to have some type of relationship built, especially when it comes to business, but also in your personal life too, because you never know that this person can be your greatest referral for you in your next opportunity. So this one is just something to keep in mind, to just continuously build those relationships, regardless of what that relationship might be like for you. Just always kind of keep it business level if it needs to. And if it turns into something better, then yeah, definitely want to bring that into your personal life as well. The next professional goal is find a female mentor. This one is extremely dear to me because currently I have 3 male mentors. Yeah, believe it or not, I have 3 male mentors. Even though these people are extremely important to me and have been such an integral part of my career and my growth, it's really, really hard being able to relate with them sometimes when a lot of them things they may see are from their perspective and might not always be from another gender perspective. Like for example, because I work in such a male-dominated place, I feel like they're unable to empathize sometimes when something might not go my way. And even though all 3 of my male mentors, which by the way, these people are like the creme of the company, like they made such a big impact, I still feel like when it comes from a mentorship perspective, sometimes they don't always have the best guidance when it comes to providing solutions or things that I can do to help me in my career as a woman in tech, but most importantly, a woman in color. All 3 of my mentors are exactly what you think. They are male, older, and yes, they're white. So because of that, I'd really love to find a female mentor that I can relate with from a professional level, but then also from a personal level at the same time. And also look for someone that would be able to provide me the solutions and strategies that I may need to help me grow in my career, but also help me improve myself in my personal life as well. I could probably make a whole video all about my career decisions and desires, but yeah, I'll go ahead and stop at that. I am just hoping to find a female mentor that will be a great guidance for me, and hopefully I could find that person soon. My next professional goal is always learn better management practices. As a product manager, you are a people manager and you're also a project manager. There's a lot that goes under the belt of what I do, and I'm always looking for ways to manage people and projects at the same time, especially when you're working on very complex things. I think people managing is a lot more complex than project managing, because with people, you're dealing with all different types of personalities and different wants and needs. And this is probably the hardest thing when it comes to becoming a manager. My goal is to become a director at one point, and you need to have some really, really good people managing skills in order to lead into that. And I just want to be better at managing that because I really do want to get to the point of being able to lead an entire organization. That's the direction I've always wanted to get into. I think having a female mentor would be really, really good for this. So I feel like these two really tie hand to hand. My next professional goal is learn a new professional skill. I haven't decided if I wanted this to be a hard skill or a soft skill. My job requires me to know a little bit of both, but I do know that being in a leadership role does require you to have some very strong soft skills. But I think for this one, I want to focus a little bit more on hard skills because I really want to learn a little bit more on how to be a little bit more technical. In the past, I used to do a lot of UX UI design, but I want to get more into coding because I feel like in my job, especially the direction I want to go, it would be really beneficial for me to know a little bit more coding, because the more that you have under your belt, the more that you're going to be a valuable employee for whichever employer that you work for. You'd be pretty difficult to be replaced, especially if you have some skills that other people just may not have. Okay, so I actually think this might lead into my next goal, which is study for my PMP certification. The PMP certification stands for Project Management Professional Certification. This certification is a very prestigious certification that is typically obtained for people that are into project management. I've been slacking on this unfortunately, but I already have my education for this. I already obtained like 35 PUs or credits. They call it PUs. I don't remember what that stands for, but I already obtained all of those. All I need to do at this point is schedule my exam. This is something that is really important to me, especially in my professional career, and I definitely would love to have this under my belt. Okay, I have 2 more goals to go. So my next one is design 3 resume templates for my Etsy. As I've been looking for jobs, that meant I had to make a brand new resume template, and I feel like I've gotten to the point where I've made a really, really, really good resume template. That's when I started to get a lot more callbacks from a lot of recruiters. It's not about just the design itself, it's also the keywords are in it. But I do think a resume does say a lot about someone, especially the design at the same time. And I feel like I got my resume template designed to the point where it can be used universally by all different types of profession, because it actually looks very similar to a LinkedIn template. I actually posted this on my Etsy account and I've gotten some really good sales on it. And then my last goal for the year is cap my 401k for 2025. I think the 401k did increase to up to 23,000 this year, so this one's gonna be a little rough for me to try to meet, which means I pretty much have to put $23,000 into my 401k. Honestly, you guys, your retirement fund is so important. I kid you not. Like, I highly recommend that if you don't even have a 401k, just start an account and just put money in there and just don't touch it. But if you do have a 401k, I would consider looking in to start putting in as much money in there as possible. There could be a potential possibility that you might want to retire early. I don't know what it could be, but I really do recommend. It's so important to start putting money. If you have an employer that will help match your 401k, that's even better. I think most employers match anywhere between like 1 to 3%, but this one is just a really good one for me. It's all about your financial safety and your security. You definitely want to have that cushion just for your future, or just again, when things get in the way and you need to withdraw some funds. This is exactly what it's for. That was the end of all of my goals for 2025. I really hope that this gave you some inspiration for some goal setting that you can do for your year. Like I mentioned, my next video is going to be my entire Notion setup for 2025, where I'm going to go a little bit more in depth with my goals and how I plan to set them. So definitely keep an eye out for that one. And again, I have that template ready for you. But until then, please be kind to yourself, because anything that you've been doing is just one step ahead to get to where you want to be. And it's going to be a brand new year. I'm really looking forward to 2025. I really hope you're as well. I really cannot wait to talk a little bit more about what next year is going to look like in my next video. And I hope to see you guys again soon. Bye!